and Tannenbaum's one and only staff octogenarian. Not only that, but I asked Judy if she would come and say just a couple of words about Tannenbaum and the work she has done for a lifetime fighting for justice. What she didn't know, but maybe she now suspects a little bit, is that we also wanted to publicly acknowledge you at a night of laughter for all that you've done for over 50 years to bring people together across the religious divide. So will you please give her a big hand while I get her a token of our appreciation. Since the very beginning, and for those of you who don't know, that means 25 years. We're coming on our 25th anniversary next year, and I think that's pretty amazing, both for her and for Tannenbaum. And for Georgia. So, let me turn this over to Judy, and thank you all again for being with us.
Good evening.
Evening.
My assignment for this evening is a bit weird. I've been instructed first to describe my role at Tannenbaum, and second to make it funny. Competing ends, can't do it. As you all know, Tannenbaum is devoted to combating prejudice and discrimination on the basis of racial, ethnic, or religious grounds, but it has a special concern about religious hatred. Our programs in religion and conflict resolution, in religion in the workplace, on educating about religious diversity in our schools and campuses are all intended to make religion part of the solution to mutual understanding and respect instead of part of the problem. My own piece of action at Tannenbaum is to focus on prejudice and hostility which are rooted in the sacred literature and the teaching and preaching traditions of religion itself. Where am I here? This is a very delicate form of work. As the Protestant scholar Bernhard Olson has noted, if our prejudices and hatred seem to have the sanction of religious support, that is prejudice with a halo around it. So confronting this form of prejudice means treading very gently on thin ice. It is a minefield, and there is grave danger in making fun of religion, as the editors of Charlie Hebdo found out a few years ago in France. So to play it safe, I'm going to tell 3 jokes. It's a comedy club, so I've been instructed to be funny. So I'm going to tell 3 jokes. 1 Protestant, 1 Catholic, 1 Jewish. And I stress that each of these jokes was told to me by a member of the religious community that is the butt of the joke. That's very important. The Protestant, or specifically Presbyterian joke, was told to me at a minister at a conference during a coffee break, and we were talking about religious humor, and I said, "Is there such a thing as Presbyterian humor?" And he said, "Indeed there is," and he told me the following story. This takes place in Aberdeen, Scotland. You know, Scotland was the source of the Presbyterian tradition in Protestantism. And the pastor is walking down the street. Can you hear me? Sorry. The pastor is walking down the street, and he is approached by a very irate parishioner, Mrs. McDougall. And she says to him, "Pastor, I saw Mrs. Campbell tending her garden on the Sabbath. And you know that is against our religion. You're not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. And I want you to call her down in front of the congregation next Sunday and criticize her in front of all of us." And the pastor tries to be moderate, and he says to her, "Now, Mrs. McDougall, you know, even our good Lord healed on the Sabbath. And she says, aye, but two wrongs don't make a right. The Catholic joke was told to me by the former director of Catholic Jewish Relations for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. So that makes it entirely kosher. And it's the story of an Irish Catholic man who was crossing the street and gets hit by a car, and he wakes up in a Catholic hospital, and there is a nun sitting next to him with a pad, and she's trying to get some information from him about his coverage. So she says, do you have any health insurance? He says, no, I don't have any health insurance. She said, are your parents still alive? No, my parents are gone many years. She says, do you have any siblings who could meet the expenses here? He says, no. He says, I don't have any siblings except one spinster sister who's a nun. So the nun who's taking down the information is quite annoyed, and she says to him, nuns are not spinsters. Your sister is not a spinster. She's married to God. He says, very good, send the bill to my brother. And last but not least, the Jewish joke was told to me not by a rabbi, but by a Jewish friend from France. And it's the story of a young Jew. It takes place in a little shtetl in Eastern Europe in the Pale of Settlement. You know, these little communities where maybe 50 to 100 Jews live. And there's a young woman who is recently married. She's hardly had a chance to enjoy her marriage, and just a few weeks after she's married, her husband dies suddenly. And she's bereft, and she can't handle it, and she's in terribly unhappy circumstances. So the town elders assemble, and they decide that they should marry her off again. And the only eligible guy in town is the town butcher. He's a very, very pious man, not very educated, not very cultivated, very devout, and he agrees to be her husband, and they meet with her and she agrees to marry him. She hardly knows him at all. And on the first Friday morning after the wedding, he says to her, my mother, may God bless her memory, always say, at the beginning, before Sabbath comes, it's good to make love to your wife. So they do. And then Friday evening, he says to her, my father, may God bless his memory, always says it is a mitzvah, which is a religious obligation, and it's true, to make love to your wife at the beginning of Sabbath. Saturday morning, he says to her, my Aunt Frida, may God bless her memory, says that you should begin the Sabbath by making love to your wife. And Saturday night at Havdalah, when the Sabbath is over and you begin the new week, he says to her, my Uncle Moshe, of blessed memory, always said to start the new week, you should make love to your wife. So the following Thursday, she's shopping in the market, and somebody says, one of her neighbors comes up and says, well, how's the new husband? She says, well, he's a very simple man. He's not very cultivated. He's not very educated, but he comes from a wonderful family. To work for the last 25 years. And that is, if you can sum up Tannenbaum's mission in one sentence, it would be, we tried to keep people from killing each other in the name of religion.